Professor Michael Clarke, who joins me now. And Michael, big questions being asked about what the strike was, how it was conducted. We're still getting that information coming through. There is still very little information about exactly what. What we understand is it was over Isfahan. The air over Isfahan is where we're told that this strike was conducted.
Yes, we've got some confirmation of that, Yalda, that there were some explosions in Isfahan around the air base there, and there is a big air base at Isfahan. Isfahan's also a pretty big industrial centre, very important city. It's also one of the, you might call the nuclear cities. It's not the home to a nuclear reactor or enrichment plants. They're mainly at Fordo and Natanz, a bit further south. But there's a big research centre. I mean, most of the nuclear research that Iran conducts is carried out at Isfahan. About 3,000 scientists work there. Now, there's no evidence that these explosions were anywhere near the nuclear facilities, but the fact that it's one of the nuclear cities is symbolically not lost, I think, on people assessing this. And attacking the airbase at Isfahan, if that's where the explosions were, they seem to be, would make a certain amount of sense. Also, I mean, the Tasnim agency, the Tasnim news agency, which is very close to the IRGC, was also reporting explosions in Tabriz. Now, we haven't confirmed that, and Sky's been very cautious about that, but other agencies are talking about that. But the reason that Tabriz might be important, along with Isfahan, is that one of the things that Isfahan produces is drones that were used to attack Israel last weekend. And one of the things that exists at Tabriz, which is in the northwest, in the mountainous area, there are a lot of silos there for Shahab-2 and Shahab-3 ballistic missiles, which were also used to attack Israel last weekend. So if it is the case that both Isfahan and Tabriz have been attacked, it would look like the Israelis are going after certain targets that were directly related to the attack last weekend, where 330 drones and missiles were launched against Israel. Now, that's not confirmed yet, certainly in terms of Tabriz, but the Isfahan attack is confirmed, and almost certainly, from a military analysis, it has to be almost certainly ballistic missiles. The Iranians are saying drones, they've intercepted some drones and none of them got through. That's very, very unlikely, because Isfahan is 1,000 miles away from Israel, and nobody in their right mind will send drones 1,000 miles to deliver very small payloads, which they can only really carry. So for any sort of effective attack, a couple of missiles at least, usually 2 missiles are used on each target to make sure there's a 98% chance of a proper hit. And so 2 missiles at least, and probably more, were sent against these targets in Isfahan. Almost certainly there would have been the Jericho 3 missile. That has a range of at least 3,000 miles, so it's easily capable of reaching the area. And it carries a 1,000 kiloton warhead, which is a ton. Sorry, a 1,000 kilogram warhead, which is a ton. So in that respect, it would be a big enough explosion to make a difference to something as big as an airbase or a facility.
Michael, no surprises that Iran would say they were drones, just to try and downplay this attack and the impact of it.
Yeah, I mean, everything we've heard from the Iranians in the last 2 or 3 hours indicates that they're saying, look, there's nothing here to see. It was an attack. It was trivial. It didn't matter. And if more attacks do come to light, and I've seen some American reports which are reporting a lot more attacks, and I'm very skeptical about that, but we'll see in the coming hours. But the Iranians have an interest in saying this is a one-off attack. It was drones. It didn't matter. Therefore, it relieves them of the responsibility of being so outraged by it that they feel they have to do something else even more decisive. And so both sides here are trying to save face. You can see that the Israelis are trying to save face, to do something, but not so much that it upsets the allies too much, which is why, as James was saying, they've been very careful this time to inform their American allies and almost not get their approval, because they won't get approval, but to get at least their acceptance of what they're doing. And the Iranians are being quite careful not to overplay this at the moment, to indicate that as they may react in a way that doesn't now hit Israel directly, but maybe tries to indicate some other reaction on targets elsewhere in the region and possibly even on shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, as they did last week. The idea that the Iranians will be seen to react but not react in a way that is escalatory is growing in credibility as the hours go on. So things are looking a bit calmer at the moment than they did about 3 or 4 hours ago.
It's still difficult to know how exactly the Iranians will react, Michael. I've been speaking to Israeli officials here who were quite surprised that following that Iranian compound that was attacked by the Israelis on April the 1st, that the reaction and response would be a state-on-state attack, which they say crossed every red line and every understanding that they had of how Iran would respond to something like that.
Yeah, I mean, the assassination of Zahedi in Damascus did cross a lot of red lines, not just for the Iranians, but for other countries as well, because this was a consular building within the embassy compound. It was diplomatic premises, and whoever is in the diplomatic premises, there is a general acceptance in diplomacy that you don't attack diplomatic premises. Even if the Israelis claim that that made it a military target because there were military figures there, nobody would accept that, I think, in the diplomatic world. So that attack on the 1st of April against Zahedi, which got him and 15 others, did cross a number of lines and surprised and disappointed, I think, quite a lot of Israel's allies. And the Iranians felt that by attacking an embassy, they were effectively attacking Iranian territory, and the Iranians then hit back. And the Iranian attack, 330 missiles and drones, was clearly intended to do a lot more damage than it did. 7 missiles, ballistic missiles, got through of those 330 to the Nevatim air base in the south of Israel, quite near to Dimona, incidentally, which is the nuclear site in Israel, one of the important nuclear sites. But only 7 got through and created very minor damage. Undoubtedly, the Iranians were briefing out that really the attack was a symbol. It was intended to fail. They didn't want it to be too bad. We informed our allies before we did it. I don't believe that. I know they did inform their allies, but if they wanted an attack that was intended merely as a symbol, then it would have been 50 or 60 drones and missiles. 330 was clearly intended to do a lot more damage than it actually did. So I think the Iranians did respond strongly. They have been somewhat humiliated by the lack of success of that attack, although they're still playing it up as a propaganda victory because they attacked Israeli territory. But here the Israelis are humiliating the Iranians in the eyes of the world. And what the Israelis are saying is, look, if we choose to drop 2 Jericho missiles on you, they will get through, and they will, because the Iranians don't really have an air defense system that can defend themselves effectively against a Jericho 3 missile. So the Israelis are making the point that, we don't need to send 330 missiles and drones. We'll send 2, we'll send 6, we'll send 10, and they will hit you. They will get through, and they'll hit you at a place of our choosing. And that's the message, I think, which these limited attacks so far seem designed to send to Tehran.